So I think with that, open it up for questions. So please, like I said, use the chat box or unmute and chat. We'll very much try to keep responses in the order in which we receive them in the chat box. And then I guess just asking for anybody who wants to unmute and ask questions or give comments. Do consider that we have about 30 people with us. So probably keep it to a couple minutes each just to provide ample opportunity for everybody to speak up. So.
Ashley, you want to field the questions?
Absolutely. So we had one that came in that is the roundabout going to be large enough for large buses? Chris or Cody, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take that one, Ashley. So yes, it will be. That was part of the final design of both roundabouts, is to ensure that they could accommodate a school bus without the school bus having to ride over any curbs, as well as a semi-tractor trailer can fit through the roundabout using the inside truck apron, or we have a couple of truck aprons around the perimeter, outside perimeter of the roundabout for that use as well. So so the school bus was our design vehicle, and the tractor trailer was our the other end of that spectrum.
Can you describe how city bus stops will be accommodated?
Yes, so if you go back to the layout, you can see there, and we have been coordinating with MVTA. Currently, their route through the area is a flag stop route, which means that along Diffley Road and Braddock Trail, the bus will stop where they feel comfortable pulling over to pick up riders. Through this project, and with the addition of the roundabout at Braddock Trail, we are actually installing 3 dedicated bus stop platforms. So the one here is shown on the westbound side of Braddock Trail, where the bus can pull out of the travel lane and pick up passengers there. We also have one on the eastbound side, just past the Diffley Marketplace entrance. And then there's one more on the west side of the Diffley Marketplace entrance. And so the project will be installing the concrete platform for those and connections to the trail system. And then MVTA will be coming through afterwards and installing bus shelters and signage.
Thank you, Cody. Next question was, how will speed limit on Diffley Road be determined? Jenna, do you want to jump in and answer that one?
I definitely can, but we do have Chrissy here, our traffic engineer.
So thank you, Jenna. Following the completion of the project, we will be having, MnDOT will be, at our request, doing a study to assess the corridor with the new roadway conditions and establish a posted speed limit authorized by the Commissioner of Transportation. That is the process that is outlined in state statute. So the county and city are prepared to make that request, and then the state will do the field review assessments, and ultimately we will get a new speed zone authorization. We expect a new speed zone authorization based on what they feel the appropriate new speed for the corridor is, based on the design and traffic traveling through the corridor.
Thank you, Christine. I think that actually also answered the next one that came in that asked, will the lower speed limit be posted so drivers know to slow down? And as Christy was just saying, they will once a study authorizes those lower speed limits.
Right, so we plan through the project to, once we have the speed zone authorization from the state, then we would post what they deem the appropriate speed to be.
Ron Peterson, you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute and ask a question or make a comment.
Very good, thank you. I've lived in the neighborhood for about 16 years and I've always been concerned about this area. So I'm very, very happy to see this and I congratulate you all. It looks like a really beautiful project. And I was involved in a very serious accident on Diffley and Braddock Trail some years ago. And this project would have definitely prevented that accident. So that's just a comment, I guess. Then also I'm just a little concerned with the bidding process because you hear cheaper, but cheaper doesn't always get you there. So I'm a little, could maybe talk a little bit about the actual bidding process that you're looking to do and what parameters. Because like I say, sometimes cheaper isn't always better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Chris or Jenna, do you want to take that one?
I can start, and I'm sure Jenna will have some to add. So the bidding process that the public agencies use, we do put detailed construction plans and specifications together that are essentially the performance requirements for the bidders. And depending on how a contractor approaches the project, they may have access to different materials. They may have just a different way of approaching it. We give them some flexibility to get creative and how to do it efficiently. The county will award to the lowest responsible bidder. So there will be a review of the bid to determine are they being responsive to the specifications and the plans that we've prepared. Once that's determined, we take the low bid. We do have a number of very qualified contractors that do repeat work for the county and the city and the state and the school district. So we also know the various contractors that are bidding and know what they can and can't do. So I don't, Jen, if you have anything to add on county specific practices.
No, Chris, you did a great job. The only item I might add is we do publicly advertise for the project bidding. So that is open to the public to bid, and we do open bids publicly as well. It will probably be likely a Zoom type meeting.
David Johnson, I believe you had your hand up next.
Yeah, hi. So I live right at Trenton and Diffley, and I'm concerned about the removal of a second lane, and because I see how bad traffic backs up around peak drop-off and pickup times. Aren't we concerned about gridlock at the roundabouts? I mean, you moved it from Braddock to Daniel, but Braddock constantly backs up to near Daniel, and in the west-east direction, in the east to west direction, constantly to Trenton, and even Braddock Trail, I've seen 30 or 40 cars backed up back towards Yorktown Place. You've added this channel, but it doesn't look to be any longer than the Braddock Trail to the school. So now you've got a situation where you have gridlock. Nobody can use Diffley Road while peak drop-off and pickup times.
Ashley, I'd be happy to address that. So the lane reduction on Diffley Road is part of a comprehensive approach to address the congestion issues in the area. And there's a number of factors that are causing the congestion or the stacking that you see there today. Some of it has to do with the drop-off procedures and the behavior of some of the drivers dropping off. Some of it has to do with lane restrictions getting into and out of the parking lots. That causes some of the backup. And some of it, quite frankly, is just the cycling of the stoplight at Braddock and Diffley, and to try to accommodate the movements through there in a timely manner. We need to, right today, we're stopping a heavy eastbound to northbound left turn, and we have to stop westbound traffic to do that. With the roundabout intersection, those conflicts are better accommodated by the roundabout. We can simultaneously move traffic through at slower speeds, which requires shorter gaps for traffic to merge and diverge with one another within the roundabout intersection itself. So we don't anticipate having nearly the level of traffic backup that you experience or did experience when school was fully in session in 2019.
It wasn't a 2019 issue. It's been a 20-year issue since I've moved into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it isn't because people were backed up taking that eastbound, northbound turn. There wasn't room on the road for them, even when the light was green. So now you're going to you move the problem area potentially from Braddock to Daniel. And so people will still be coming westbound, going northbound on Daniel into that new service road, but there's still going to be too much traffic to handle it, and now you have no way for anyone to get by anyone. So now you've added the congestion of normal traffic into that slowness.
We've separated out the concentration of traffic by adding the second access road. Today, everybody going to the Dakota Hills Middle School from Diffley Road has to go through the Braddock Trail intersection. By adding a second entrance, we're able to split up the traffic and provide options so that you're not stuck with just the one option with the limited capacity. I'd be happy to share some previous work that we did to look at what the options were and the anticipated traffic conditions before and after. I think will help kind of demonstrate the benefits of the roundabout intersections that we're proposing.
Okay, and one last thing. So you're pushing people down Yorktown Place, which is already a minor racetrack. As people dodge Diffley, is there going to be anything done to possibly help slow speeds, as in the way of speed bumps or something down Yorktown Place, now that you're pushing more traffic on that?
I guess I'm not familiar with a current problem on Yorkshire Place.
Yorktown Place.
Yorktown?
Yes, it's like a half a block off of Diffley, right at Trenton Lane. I mean, they put up the speed sign to remind people once a year on this road already to slow down and to maintain 30 miles an hour or less, and people go by all the time faster than that. I mean, well, I'm looking out my front window and looking at Yorktown Place, and during this meeting, I've seen people go by at 35, 40 miles an hour already before you force traffic onto this road.
David, if I can piggyback with that, the same issues are on Braddock Trail South.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
And
I agree.
With Mike Sapina here and Gary Hansen from the City Council, I would like to know how these streets that are deemed as sidewalks, because that's the only place pedestrians have to walk, how they can be kept at a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. You're basically saying it's okay to drive 30 miles per hour on a sidewalk. We have no street markings. We have no shoulders. It's a dense residential area all along this whole stretch. I'm sure David can agree with me that all of these neighborhoods on the south side of Diffley are built the same. And I would like to comment for the record, how can the city of Eagan justify a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit in these neighborhoods? Thank you.
This is Gary Hansen. Been monitoring the comments. And I'm not familiar with, the speed studies that may have been done in the area south of Diffley. If it is felt that more attention needs to be given to the area, we can certainly have discussions with city staff to see what has been done and what might be done to slow down traffic. We'll certainly have that conversation.
Hi, this is Mike. A couple things. First of all, the previous comment about Yorktown Place, I believe, I'm not sure this was really clear in the question, but I believe you're talking about the detour that's going to be happening during construction, where traffic
that'll make it worse.
detoured onto Yorktown Place. And yeah, I'm not sure that was, if the presenter completely understood that's what you were referring to. As far as, I'll echo Gary as far as Braddock Trail. I had asked the question earlier about how the speed limit would be determined on Diffley Road. And evidently there's a process that goes through the state to determine that. I'm assuming that's not the case for local city streets. That I don't know. And perhaps our city engineer does know and could tell us that. Two separate issues, because one is a city, a local city road, and the other one is a county road. So it sounds like there's a few questions about speed limits on several roads here that maybe, some of the engineers that are on the call can answer.
Councilmember Sapina, thank you. The issue of the setting of speed limits is under different jurisdiction for county roads and local agencies. The local agency city control of local streets on speed limits was just recently granted, in 2019 legislature. And while the setting of the local authority has changed, or the authority to set speed limits has changed, the industry and how those speed limits are set still remains the same. It's usually based on a 85th percentile of speed. That may be an archaic method of setting speed limits, but Tim Plath, our transportation operations engineer on this call, has been part of a larger statewide task force on a vision on how to properly set local speed limits. So we're still working through that process on a statewide basis as city engineers, transportation engineers, on how best to set those local speed limits. Please keep in mind that speed limit setting does not entirely equate to lower speeds. Lower speeds are generally, on local streets especially, are generally a product of the environment, not necessarily the speed limit sign that's up. So I think city staff will likely have a longer conversation with overall local streets and setting speed limits at a future date with the city council and public involvement as well, once the overall process for the state is a little more known.
John, if I might just add a bit to the original question was regarding speeding during construction and having
sure.
traffic on that road. We do monitor the displacement of traffic during construction, and if something does become problematic, we can take measures to address that, either temporary changes in traffic control. This route that I described using Trenton Road and Yorktown Place as a neighborhood access route, I want to be clear that we're not detouring Diffley Road traffic through the neighborhood. That will be the next available local access route for neighbors and residents coming in and out of that neighborhood. It's not intended to be traffic moving through Diffley Road going over to Lexington.
And Chris, might I suggest during construction we may have signage up at the Trenton Trail Diffley Road intersection that says local traffic only, to try to discourage people that, thinking of that as a cut through during construction.
The problem is people are going to come down Trenton, go down Yorktown to Braddock and over to Daniel to get into the shopping. You've created a shortcut alternate route, even which neighborhood people know and people are going to use as the primary route instead of going down to Cliff or anything. That's why I'm concerned. And then, or just maybe closing that entrance only off Daniel into the shopping area will close that excess traffic down.
I know we've had discussions with the property managers of Diffley Marketplace. Perhaps we could float that idea as well with our project management team if it becomes an issue. That's for sure.
There's not anything else to add to that. I recognize there's a couple hands up, but I want to get to one question in the chat box that hopefully kind of wraps up some of the speed limit talk. One of the last questions is, I'm not clear on the posting of the speed limits. Will there be some signage when the road reopens, then may change after the state studies it, or no signage until the study is complete? I guess, Christy, do you want to provide some clarification on that question?
Sure. So the speed limit, the authorized speed limit in Diffley today is 45 miles an hour. Because the new road conditions are creating an environment for a slower speed, the intent is to wait to post the new authorized speed until the state comes through and gives us that speed. I don't see a benefit of reposting the 45 when that is no longer the applicable conditions to drive the roadway. So we're going to work with MnDOT and look to get the speed zone authorization process done as quickly to the road opening as we can, and then we can post the speed signs.
Thank you, Christy. Christopher McDonald, you've had your hand up for quite a while.
Thanks, Ashley. Just a couple of things, and maybe Chris Cromie can help with this by going to the slide that shows the bus routes in and out, the red line slide. I don't remember where that slide was, that showed the access points for the buses. The real question I have is the new access road that comes down the hill along Diffley Road, is that intended, are buses supposed to use that period? In other words, when a bus comes to either the middle school or the high school to drop off, are they to only come in that access road, take that left, go into the bus corral, then turn around and come back out? Is that it?
That's one of the purposes.
Okay.
That roadway, that access roadway will be open to buses. We know, working with district staff, that the vast majority of the buses do end up coming back to and from Diffley Road. So we expect the majority of buses to come in that way. There may be 3 or 4 buses that still come out onto Braddock Trail.
Okay.
But it will also be open to drop off and teacher parking as well. It's not a bus only access.
Okay, that's good. Then the other thing is we're still going to allow access at the Braddock Trail entrance to what I call the upper parking lot, the one marked staff. for buses as well, because our special needs buses actually drop off at the north west or the southwest corner of Egan High School building, right? When that first curve into the start of the horseshoe, that's where our special needs buses drop off. They don't drop off in the bus corral.
That's correct. That access point, the existing access to the south parking lot at Braddock Trail will remain open.
Okay.
That will continue to allow buses to go between the East High School parking lot and the South Dakota Hills Middle School.
Okay. Then my concern with the walking trail or the trail that comes off of Braddock and winds into the south point of the staff parking lot where the road, the new access road comes down. Yes, right where you're pointing, Chris. First of all, that's probably going to be a lot of bikers, kids who ride their bikes. I don't believe in the planning there's a sidewalk anywhere adjacent to where it comes out. So it comes out into the parking lot. The bike corrals and the places that the kids park are nowhere near that entrance there. And so it's going to encourage them to cross traffic with their bikes or to do things that could in fact put them in harm's way. I think if we have it come out there rather than if it was closer to the building where it came out. Does that make sense?
It does, and we've spent quite a bit of time with the school district staff and the school architect to come up with this configuration. So as you described, bicyclists and pedestrians will come down into the parking lot. They will come to a stop condition. All vehicles, motorists and pedestrians are going to be required to stop. They'd always stop. We are constructing a trail on the back side of the curb of the existing parking lot to get bicyclists and pedestrians over to a marked crosswalk that aligns with the sidewalk that extends out between the bus corral and the staff parking in that south parking lot.
Okay.
So we have gone through a number of different alternatives to try to channel pedestrians and motorists in a safe and efficient way possible. We know if it gets to be too inefficient, kids are kids. I've had middle schoolers, I've had high schoolers. If we make it too difficult or too long, they're going to start making their own path. But we also needed to provide both an efficient and a safe crossing manner, and there weren't a lot of other better options than what we're proposing here.
Okay, my last thing. Oh,
I'd
go ahead.
quickly add to that, just to help answer that question, is the placement of bike racks and things like that has been something that has been a big part of the discussion for the Safe Routes to School planning process. As in, where should new locations be to encourage students to the extent possible to use the routes that are being recommended with the Safe Routes to School plan. So that's being talked about in the comprehensive approach and communication of these future proposed routes.
Okay. My last question, the existing 2 beacon crossings that exist on Braddock Trail that we've had now for several years are programmed ones that I program the times on those. Will they stay programmed or will they then become button operated rapid ones like the ones on Diffley?
Who do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take that one. So yes, those are getting replaced with pedestrian activated flashing beacons.
Okay, that's good.
So when they are flashing, that means there is a pedestrian there that is intending to cross.
Okay, so that will make it consistent with the other crossing areas.
Yes.
So, all right, cool. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Catherine, you had your hand up next.
Hi. My concern is the amount of like traffic congestion and pedestrian traffic once the new road is in for the elementary school for Northview, because it looked like from the map that you had up earlier for where the the buses are supposed to be coming in and the parent drop off and pick up. It looked like, from what I remember seeing, is that you had the buses going to the west parking lot of Northview, and you had the parent drop off, pick up on the east lot and directly in front of the school. So that means you have all the traffic coming off of Diffley Road. All the parents coming in to drop off their children are going to be coming in that Daniel Drive roundabout, and the pedestrians are going to be entering that same roundabout as well. So when you have those cars backing up, so basically you only have one entry point for all the parent traffic, all the car traffic, and the pedestrian traffic. And I'm wondering what's going to happen, how that's going to be handled.
I'm going to kick that over to Cody as well, because I know Cody's been in the most recent discussions with the school principal and the school architect, and how that operation is going to work.
And the timing of the school start times too, Cody, add that in.
Yeah, so I think, Chris, if you went to the next slide, it actually has those routes. There you go. Right, so here's where you're looking at, the buses come around, and the parents are intended to go north and then get into the parking lot, and that's where you have your pedestrians crossing, as well as your parents entering the school parking lot. And so yes, that is the case, but that also is the safest crossing to have them get into the school area. You have a stop condition at that crossing. There was talk about having the trail from the west leg go directly north and cross over to get to the school. That creates more conflicts than having children trying to cross between cars that are in a somewhat stopped, somewhat active drop off, and who knows, then you also have the dual threat of you step in front of a parked car and then there's a car coming in to park that comes around them. So the safest crossing then therefore is where we have it. And yes, we went through a number of discussions with the school architect and the school district on how best to accommodate the pedestrians as well as the vehicles coming in and out. And Ashley did mention too about school start times, and with the school district moving to all 3 schools having offset start times, those kids that are bound for the middle school likely wouldn't be there while elementary kids are getting dropped off. So those middle school cars will be heading to the right while they're crossing through there.
And we don't have any more questions in the chat box. Does anybody have anything else to add? Any additional questions?
I have, I'm hoping that Chris Cromie can repeat his comments from yesterday about why RRFBs are only on one leg of each roundabout when pedestrians will be using all of those crosswalks.
Sure. So the question that was asked yesterday is why, and correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, but your question from yesterday was, why are we only putting our RFBs on the west legs of the 2 roundabouts? Doesn't that diminish the safety of the pedestrian crossing on the other legs? And so my answer to that is the pedestrian crossing at the roundabout legs are substantially safer than what's the conditions that are there today, because we are bringing vehicle traffic down to slower speeds. It creates more of a human scale environment for pedestrians and motorists to get on the same level. And roundabout studies from across the state and across the countries have shown, because of this change condition and the configuration of the crosswalks, that our yield rates at roundabouts are higher than 80%. So 8 and 10 cars that a pedestrian would accommodate at a roundabout, 8 out of 10 of them will stop for them and yield to them to cross the roundabout. So we feel like all 4 of the crossings of the roundabout legs are safe for pedestrians and motorist interaction. The RRFBs were added to the west leg of Braddock Trail and the west leg of Daniel Drive because those are the identified safe routes to schools. Those are going to be promoted as where we want students and parents to cross the roadway. And at some of these locations, the school district is looking at having a crossing guard as well. So it's an added enhancement to the crosswalk on the west leg in recognition that is going to be the safe route to school route.
So yesterday you stated that in similarity comment that there was just going to be a minimum number of pedestrians using those other legs. Although I thought further of that, and although I understand there may be a minimum in the pedestrian, they're still dealing with a high volume of traffic. So their safety is still in jeopardy.
Right. The studies that we've completed as to where pedestrians are currently crossing the roadway before or after school throughout the day, there is a large portion of them that are crossing the west legs. So that's true. We expect more pedestrians to be there and present there. That doesn't diminish the safety aspect of the crossings without the RRFBs, because again, it's not a function of the number of pedestrians. It's how the motorist will respond when a pedestrian is present, whether that's 1 an hour or 10 an hour or 100 an hour. The studies have shown, because of the configuration, the slower approach speeds, the setback from the roundabout, that greater than 80% yield rate can be achieved with the marked crosswalk and assigned crosswalk at the roundabout entrance.
Are all the crosswalks going to be set back within that 15 to 20 foot range? Because previously I'd heard that some might even be set back 40 feet.
Right, they are set back between 20 and 40 feet. And that 20 feet is the standard minimum setback, so that if a motorist does proceed through the crosswalk and then has to yield before entering the roundabout, they're not blocking the crosswalk. The 40-foot recommendation came from a school, city, and county in Wisconsin that had a similar situation that implemented roundabouts here. And we asked them for lessons learned. And one of the lessons learned was, because of the amount of school bus traffic, is having a 40-foot setback so that the school bus isn't blocking the crosswalk as well. So that was one of the accommodations that we made on the Diffley Road approaches.
Are those reflected on these layouts? The 40-foot setbacks reflected on the layouts?
They would be reflected on these layouts.
Because
in the construction plan. And I don't know, Cody, if you know off the top of your head which ones are set back at 40 versus 20.
Yep.
It's pretty hard to tell.
Yeah,
They look very similar.
They look very similar in the sketches, and I'm sure they probably are drawn very similar in the sketches. In our construction plans and in the layout that should be online as well. The eastern and western legs of both roundabouts, so those that are on Diffley Road itself, are set back 40 feet, whereas the crosswalks on the northern and southern legs on either Daniel Drive or Braddock Trail are set back to 20 feet.
And now that I was reminded of some of the work that we did with the other agencies in Wisconsin, there were a couple other items that we implemented from a lessons learned standpoint. One of those was the width of the crosswalks at the schools, as well as the width of the median. I mentioned that earlier about having a wider than normal median, so that we can accommodate multiple bicyclists. We can accommodate groups of kids, a dozen kids that might cross together in that median, and we don't strand them out in the median without enough space there. Some of the lighting recommendations that they provided we're implementing as well. So it was a good case study for us to study before and after, and what they would do differently from lessons learned, and be able to sort through those and implement what we felt was applicable here.
Well, just a follow-up comment. As part of Dakota County Board's agenda on January 5th of this year, there was an attachment, pedestrian safety and bonding projects. In that document, it stated, Dakota County is committed to pedestrian safety. Safe passage across busy state and county highways can be dangerous, especially for the young and the less able. This statement doesn't say safe passage across Diffley Road is only for crosswalks with the maximum amount of pedestrians. So again, I feel, and other members of the PACE community and other residents in general, strongly feel that RRFBs should be located on all legs of the roundabouts on Diffley Road. Thank you.
And Teresa, I'm not sure the context of what you're reading there out of the county board, but I do think that applies here. And if I've been overstating that this is a safe crossing, it's in a relative manner. Any interaction between a pedestrian and a vehicle, there's a level of risk, there's a level of safety concern there. What I'm stating with the roundabout crossings is that we're reducing the risk because we're increasing the yield rates of motorists. We know that from hundreds of other roundabout conditions, that this configuration increases the yield rate of motorists. We're reducing the distance that pedestrians need to cross or be exposed to a traffic condition. So we're reducing the exposure of the pedestrian. And then by having the lower speeds, it brings motorists down to a human scale rather than an automobile scale, and able to have that eye contact with pedestrians. So they have a wider cone of vision as they slow down and approach that intersection. So there are a number of safety benefits that are being added, not just by the RRFBs. And as I mentioned yesterday, in yesterday's meeting, the concern becomes overuse of warning devices, particularly flashing devices, can start to reduce the effectiveness where they are needed most. And that went into our decision making, that where we most need the RRFBs is at the Diffley Marketplace crossing, where vehicle traffic is going to be higher speed than approaching a roundabout. We need that heightened awareness. They're added enhancements for the designated routes to schools, but by adding additional flashing lights, we would be concerned about just watering down the effectiveness to where they are most needed.
Well, on that note, Senator Jim Carlson yesterday expressed his concern that this high rate of speed is going to be bearing down on that Diffley Marketplace crosswalk, and how the whole setup is just an accident waiting to happen. It's going to be traffic moving eastbound in this predicament, narrowing into a single lane while supposedly reducing speeds, while supposedly watching for pedestrians.
Which is why the RRFBs at that location are essential.
Well, I'll comment again yesterday that we have very minimal flashers and signage on Diffley Road right now with the reduced school speed zone. And I implore Mike Sapina and Gary Hansen and anyone else, I'm not sure that anyone is here from the county that represents the residents in this area, but come on and sit out there inconspicuously and watch how the drivers are not paying attention to those random flashers. I find it hard to accept the argument that random flashers are better than the maximum. People are speeding up and down Diffley Road, completely ignoring, okay, there's a few drivers obeying the school zone speeds, but the majority are not. And I implore any of our city and county representatives to get out there and see for yourself what's going on.
So Teresa, I'm certain we're not going to come to a common agreement on the pedestrian crossing safety out here. We are not implementing random placement of flashers. They are very strategic as to where we recognize pedestrians will be crossing and how we're accommodating those crossing. And we're using those flashers to raise the awareness of the drivers, to catch their attention at the locations where we most need them to be paying attention.
I have one last comment. I know that it's often been stated that the road diet and the roundabouts were instituted in order to decrease pedestrian and vehicle conflicts, correct?
Is to minimize so yes, decreasing the conflict points between pedestrians and motorists.
And yet those same pedestrians are now going to face increased pedestrian and vehicle conflicts at the new access road and all of the entrances to Dakota Hills and Egan High Schools, correct? Because adding lanes, including all of the additional lanes in the Northview parking lot and that location, and adding an additional lane to every single of exits or entrances to the schools along Braddock Trail North increases the pedestrian and vehicle conflict points, correct?
It does not increase the exposure by simply adding lanes. What the project overall is accomplishing is reducing the concentration of vehicle traffic and pedestrian exposure by distributing it out into a system of roadways and sidewalks, so that where vehicles and pedestrians encounter one another, where motorists and pedestrians encounter one another, is more expected.
I would also like Mike Supina and Gary Hansen to be aware at this past September meeting, Chris Cromie acknowledged that the majority of the pedestrians crossing, especially that Dakota Hills, Egan High School lot, the entrance exit area, the kids that go that way in order to access the east side of Egan High School. Chris Cromie acknowledged that most of those pedestrians are coming from the south side of Diffley. Isn't that correct, Chris?
I don't recall what you're referring to, Teresa, specifically.
At the public meeting in September, you acknowledged that the majority of the pedestrians crossing at that exit and entrance crosswalk are coming from the south side of Diffley.
At which one is that? The south parking lot?
You're heading on the correct.
Okay. So yes, we witnessed a majority of the pedestrians that were coming in crossed at the south access.
Okay, so I just want Mike Supina and Gary Hansen to be aware that when a survey was done about these same locations on Braddock Trail North, where, as Chris mentioned, the majority of the pedestrians are coming from the south side of Diffley, the survey was only implemented to residents living in the monopoly neighborhoods. None, and I repeat, none of the residents living on the south side of Diffley were asked about their opinion about these. So the data that's displayed regarding that survey is quite skewed. And I would also want to say that it bears questioning why the south side of Diffley residents were excluded from participating in that survey.
So I would like to respond to that. Actually, that survey was also shared through the school email listserv, which is very widespreading. So nobody was excluded specifically from that survey. And with that, we do only have a couple minutes left, and I do want to let Nicole ask her question. She has had her hand up for quite some time.
I can verify that survey was only a city survey that was not broadcast through the listserv.
Okay, well, we could go back and look at that.
I have the documents if you'd like them.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just have a quick question, and I posted it just in case we ran out of time. Just wondering if the turn lane so if you're traveling east from Lexington on Diffley, if that turn lane into the marketplace will be lengthened at all so that you can pass if you're continuing on. Right now it gets pretty hectic right there.
So you're talking the eastbound turn lane into Diffley Marketplace.
Yeah, yep. If you're coming from Lexington towards Daniel, yep. It looks like, so at Lexington, it's still 4 lanes, correct?
Yeah, so as you leave the Lexington Avenue intersection, you get a lane drop before you get to Cub Foods.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you get to the front of the Cub Foods, there'll be a single lane of traffic. And we've actually, because of the slower speeds that we expect, in this location, we've actually shortened that right turn lane as a way of accommodating the amount of traffic turning right versus going straight through. So your question was, did we lengthen
Shortened it? Okay.
it? We shortened it because of we believe there would be slower speeds coming through this area where it's posted at 45 today. We've designed the infrastructure for 35 miles per hour, which requires less space for deceleration into that right turn lane.
Okay.
There's no concern about backup to the light.
I
There's
do want to
no
wrap.
concern about backup to the light there with that change?
No, I wouldn't be concerned about it backing up to the light itself. We needed to separate out the merge condition from the light, and we've modeled that to show, and it's confirmed that we do have enough space for the merge to happen without backing up into the light, and then that separation occurs from the through lane, going into that right turn lane. So we don't have a concern about back up to the light.
Okay. Thank you.
I do want to respect everybody's time. We're a few minutes over here on the meeting itself. Ashley, we have information will get posted to the county's website. As mentioned, the primary objective of the meeting today was to begin preparing, whether it's mentally preparing for the construction activity and the disruption that we know comes with construction activity, and get the residents, the schools, the retail center prepared for that. So if you do have additional questions as we move into construction, it'll be here before we know it. It won't feel like it this weekend with the cold temperatures, but we all know, being from Minnesota, that May is not that far away, and May means construction season. And we're excited to get into construction and make the progress and get things done and reopened before school opens up next fall. So thank you, everybody, for your patience and the good discussion, the good questions. That helps us to understand information we need to provide as well. So have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.